Hello guys, welcome back to our programming series, Programming with C. In today's video, we'll be studying variables and data types in C. So, let's get started. Variables. Variables are containers or some kind of storage you use in the memory of your computer, and this is where your program stores data when the program is running. So whenever you create a variable, you have created a memory space, or you have allocated the memory space in your memory for it, and then whatever value you pass to it is kept there temporarily, and the value is lost whenever you end the program. Let's say you're running a program and created a variable to store numbers of the users whenever they enter the value. After you exit the program, all those data collected will be lost. That's why there is something called a database. It stores the data permanently, and you get to manipulate and delete the stuff whenever you want to. So each variable should have a unique name. They should have a unique name. They should be different from each other, because C is a strongly typed language, which means whenever you declare a variable, you can't change the type of variable it is unless you change the declaration. So let's say you've declared an variable which is an integer, so int num, and then you decide to change it later in the code to maybe float num. It won't work. It will generate an error to tell you that it's already defined and it can't be changed. But you can change the value within that variable. So a variable is declared with an identifier. An identifier is what tells the C compiler or the C program that this is what this variable can contain. So in this example, int num. So int here is the identifier. As you can see here, int here is the identifier, and it tells C that num here can hold or keep integers. That's whole numbers, either positive or negative, signed or unsigned integers. So every variable that is declared should have an identifier, and the name of a variable should always be unique. So rules for naming a variable. A variable name can only have letters, as both uppercase and lowercase, digits and underscore. So a variable name, you are free to use alphabets or words, numbers and underscores. You can't use special characters like the ampersand, the addition sign, subtraction sign, equal to, forward slash or backslash, curly bracket or curly braces. They are all not accepted in the naming of a variable, because they also play some special rules in the C program. Like the parenthesis is used to define functions, and the curly braces is used to open and close code blocks. The semicolon is used to terminate a statement, so you can't just use it in naming a variable. 2. The first letter of a variable should either be an underscore or a letter. Okay, so when naming a variable, like as we did here above, int num, realize that it starts with a letter. You can also use an underscore as the lower dash, and it's valid. But as soon as you put a number there, it tells it something different, because the C program sees a number as a constant on its own. So int, after you've declared the identifier and it followed by a number, it turns out to be an error, because identifiers are used in front of variables. and the number on its own can be a variable, it's a constant, so that will generate an error. So beginning the name of a variable with a number is not allowed. There is no rule on how long the variable name should be. It could make it as long as possible, but in some modern compilers they restrict it to at least 30 or 31, which is good because it reduces the memory usage, and it also helps and makes the code run faster, because naming a variable with a very long text it takes time for the compiler to get the name and find a value in it. So I'll advise you to keep the variable names precise and make it as meaningful as possible. By this I mean, let's say you want to take information from users, that's their full name, so the first name and the surname. Instead of using the acronym FN for first name, you could just type first name in full, but use both uppercase and lowercase just to make it a bit different. Instead of using FN, it will make your code hard to read, and you might also forget what the variable might be used for when you come back to read your code. It happens to most coders, and you are likely not to be an exception. So data types. Data types specify the kind of data used in the program. So data types are identifiers of variables and most constants. As in the example above, int specifies the kind of data that the variable num can take, which makes int a type of or a kind of data type. So this means char or character, float, doubles, all are data types. So there are two main types of data types. That's the primary and derived data types. So these are the primary data types. Integer, that's whole numbers, negative, positive whole numbers, and float, those are decimal values like 1.0, 10.5.0.3. Any number with decimal value, that's a float or a double. And the characters are single quoted letters like A, D, E, F, I, full stop, even 4. So far as it's in a single quote, it's seen as a character. So these are the main types of data types. Actually, there's one which is called a void, but we wouldn't say much about this in this video because it's usually used in creating functions and also works with pointers. So I wouldn't touch much on that in this video, but you should know that there's also a data type called void and also part of the primary data types. So the derived data types has the array, pointers, union, and structures. Arrays is a fixed size sequential collection of variables of the same type. So it's like having a series of boxes arranged together under one tag and also have the same data type. So you can't have an array which can contain integers and floats at the same time. It's either containing floats separately or integers separately. Pointers are variables that are used to keep the address of other variables. So the address of the variables, let's say int num. So num, there's a variable. You keep the address of that variable in a pointer. So instead of you referring to the variable by just num, you refer to it with the pointer. And it also helps in memory allocation. It makes memory allocation dynamic and easier to work with. Union is a special data type that enables you to store different types of data in one variable. Okay, so the union can help you store an int, float, character in the same variable or in the same container. It's a special data type made in C, and structure is somehow like union, but what differentiates them is that structure is user defined. The user can manipulate structure much more than he can do with the union. He can change the kind of data types or add or reduce it or change the whole structure of the structure. Alright, so this is basically how C works with data. So the data types and variables. So you have to remember, variables are containers or memory areas that are in the memory storage, and they are used to hold values used in your program or data used in your program. And data types are what specify or defines what a variable is. 3. Know the rules in naming a variable. Thus, the name should only have letters. It could be uppercase or lowercase, numbers, and an underscore. Never start the name of a variable with a number, and make sure the name of your variable is at most 30 or 31. I usually prefer keeping it within 20 because 30 seems to be a very long name. So I guess this is for this video. We'll talk about something new in the next video, so stay tuned.